In 58 BCE, mere months after his decisive victory over the Helvetia, Julius Caesar found himself facing a new and formidable adversary. This threat didn't emerge from within Gaul itself, but from across the formidable Rhine River. The Germanic tribes, a collection of fierce and independent peoples, were on the move, and their leader was a man named Ariovistus. Who was Ariovistus? He wasn't a king in the way the Romans understood it. He was a warlord, a chieftain, whose power was forged in battle and maintained through sheer force of will. He was brutal, cunning, and had already led his warriors across the Rhine, carving out a kingdom for himself on Gallic soil. He had subjugated local tribes like the Sequani and the Aedui, seizing their lands, taking their nobles as hostages, and imposing heavy tributes. His presence was a destabilizing force, a direct challenge to the order Caesar was trying to establish. For Caesar, this was more than just a border dispute or a diplomatic headache. The pleas for help from his Gallic allies, the Aedui, provided the perfect legal justification the casus belli needed. But beneath the surface of Roman responsibility lay a deep-seated personal ambition. A successful campaign against a fearsome foreign enemy like Ariovistus would be a massive political victory. It would earn him glory, wealth, and most importantly, it would solidify his command and his growing influence back in Rome. This wasn't just about protecting Gaul. It was about building Caesar's future. Initially, Caesar opted for diplomacy, or at least the appearance of it. He sent envoys to Ariovistus, demanding a parley, a meeting to negotiate a peaceful resolution. He insisted that Ariovistus cease bringing more Germans across the Rhine, return the Gallic hostages, and respect the sovereignty of Rome's allies. These were reasonable demands from a Roman perspective, but to Ariovistus, they were an insult. His response was one of pure, unadulterated arrogance. He sent back a message that essentially said, "Who is Caesar to tell me what to do in my own conquered lands? If I defeated the Gauls, their territory is mine by right of conquest. If Caesar wants a fight, let him come. He will learn what it means to face warriors who have never known the comfort of a roof over their heads." The gauntlet had been thrown down. There would be no negotiation, only war. With diplomacy shattered, Caesar acted with the swiftness that would become his trademark. He ordered his legions to march. The Roman war machine rumbled to life, covering vast distances with incredible speed. They advanced toward the heart of the conflict, their very presence a statement of intent. Along the way, they demonstrated another key Roman advantage: engineering. The legionaries, soldiers, and engineers in one could construct a fully fortified marching camp in a matter of hours. They felled trees, dug trenches, and erected palisades with a discipline and efficiency that was simply alien to the Germanic tribes. This ability to create a secure base anywhere, anytime, gave the Romans a massive strategic advantage. As Caesar's legions drew closer, a wave of fear swept through the Roman ranks. Stories of the Germanic warriors had spread throughout the camp. They were described as giants, men of terrifying ferocity and courage, who had never been defeated in battle. This psychological warfare, whether intentional or not, began to take its toll. Even seasoned centurions were reportedly unnerved, some even making out their wills. The morale of the army was teetering on the brink of collapse. Caesar could not allow this panic to fester. He called an assembly of his officers and delivered one of the most powerful speeches of his career. He shamed their fear, reminding them of their duty, their past victories, and the strength of Roman arms. He declared that if no one else would follow him, he would march on the enemy with the 10th Legion alone, a legion he trusted implicitly. This masterful stroke of psychology worked perfectly, shamed by his words and inspired by his confidence. The other legions pledged their loyalty. Their fear was transformed into a fierce determination to prove their commander right. With his army's morale restored, Caesar advanced to a final showdown. Ariovistus, for his part, wasn't idle. He employed a unique and intimidating tactic. He arranged the wagons and carts of his people into a large circle, a mobile fortress known as a wagon. This lugger served not only as a defensive barrier, but also as a psychological anchor. Within this circle were the women and children of the tribes. The women, acting as prophetesses, performed rituals, cried out divination, and urged their men into a battle frenzy, reminding them of the families they were fighting to protect. They declared that the omens forbade a battle before the new moon, a detail Caesar would later use to his advantage. Caesar forced the issue, maneuvering his army to cut off Ariovistus' supply lines, daring him to fight. Finally, the day of battle dawned. The Germanic host surged forward, not in disciplined lines, but as a great, howling wave of humanity. They were tall, physically imposing warriors, many fighting bare-chested, armed with long spears and protected by large wooden shields. Their charge was a terrifying spectacle of raw, untamed power. But Caesar and his legions were prepared. The Roman line held firm, a wall of steel and discipline. On Caesar's command, the front ranks of legionaries unleashed a volley of their heavy throwing spears, the pila. These weapons were ingeniously designed. Their soft iron shanks would bend on impact, making them impossible to pull out and throw back. The pila slammed into the Germanic shields, weighing them down, shattering the wood, and rendering them useless. Deprived of their primary defense, the Germanic warriors were forced to cast their shields aside and fight unprotected. This was the moment the Romans were waiting for. They drew their short, stabbing swords, the gladius, and charged, closing the distance to get under the long German spears where they would be most effective. The fighting became a brutal, close-quarters affair, a contest of Roman discipline against Germanic fury. The battle raged across the plain. On the Roman left flank, the sheer weight of the Germanic numbers began to tell. The Roman line bent, then buckled, on the verge of breaking. Caesar, positioned to observe the entire battlefield, saw the danger instantly. Without hesitation, he personally took command of the reserve cohorts and led them in a charge, smashing into the flank of the overextended German wing. His personal intervention at the critical moment, leading from the front, re-energized his men and turned the tide of the battle. The impact of the fresh Roman reserves was decisive. The pressure on the German right flank collapsed their formation. Confusion turned to panic, and the panic turned into a full-scale rout. The disciplined Roman legionaries now became relentless executioners, cutting down the fleeing warriors. Ariovistus, seeing his army disintegrate, managed to find a small boat and escaped back across the Rhine. For his followers, there was no such deliverance. Thousands were slaughtered on the battlefield. Many others tried to swim the treacherous currents of the river, but the fast-flowing water, combined with their exhaustion and wounds, claimed them. Very few made it to the other side. The victory was total and overwhelming. In a single, decisive battle, Caesar had not only saved his Gallic allies, but had also shattered the power of Ariovistus and driven the Germanic threat back across the Rhine. The news of this stunning victory echoed throughout Gaul and all the way back to Rome. Caesar's name was on everyone's lips. He was no longer just another he was the conqueror of the Germans, the protector of Gaul. This victory did more than just secure a border. It fundamentally changed the strategic map. With the Germans defeated, Caesar now had effective control over all of Eastern Gaul. He had proven his military genius and his ability to handle a crisis of immense proportions. It was a pivotal step, one that paved the way for his subsequent campaigns and, ultimately, for his ascent to absolute power. The battle against Ariovistus was a brutal and bloody affair. But for Julius Caesar, it was another glorious chapter in his unstoppable rise. Thanks for watching, and be sure to follow 4 more epic stories from history.